Hmm. Hey, did you guys ever notice that Big News Morgans looks a lot like Big Bird? You know, the character from Sesame Street. I never really watched Sesame Street. I was always more of a Mr. Rogers kid growing up. But did you notice there's like a little bit of a similarity as they are both very large, like avian beings, as it were, with the beak and the feathers. You know, there's a little bit of a resemblance there. Yeah, interesting, interesting. Now, as I said, I never really watched Sesame Street growing up. I know it was about, like, teaching kids various values. So I'm curious, did Big Bird in Sesame Street run an entire monopoly on the news media and, like, control what everybody else on Sesame Street could, like, learn about what was actually happening? Like, was he, like, bending the story? Like, this week in the Sesame Street news, Elmo, you know, just like, I don't know. I don't know. I never watched the show. Okay. So, yes, today we were talking about Big News Morgans. That's right. You know, how do you like your news personally? Do you like small news? Do you like medium news? Do you like large news? No, no, no. You gotta go big, ladies and gentlemen. Big News Morgans. Okay. And, you know, this last chapter really saw him in his element. This is like the happiest Morgans has been in like ever. Because you know how it's like, okay, we're nearing the end of One Piece, okay? Like, we're entering the final saga. Like, we know that already. I mean, we're kind of already in the final saga, if you want to be honest. But, you know, that's the fan base that knows that. But then it's like Morgan's, in the context of the story, is aware, kind of like breaking the fourth wall a little bit. Like, he knows that somebody's going to find the One Piece pretty soon. He knows that there's going to be a massive war with all the pirates and the Marines. He knows that the revolutionaries are going to be making their move soon. And he is just giddy with excitement. He's just like, big news, we're gonna sell so many papers, so much news, you know? And in the last chapter, we see Vivi and Wapol with him in the World Economic Times headquarters, which is shaped like a giant tea kettle. It's a mobile sort of fortress that he has, and he's talking about how he's going to print, you know, first page, you know, special edition of the newspaper, Monkey D. Luffy captures or takes hostage Dr. Vegapunk, okay? And so that's going to be the news that he's going to spread around the world. Vivi's there, and she voices her displeasure with it, saying that, like, oh, you know, the World Economic Times is such a rag of a newspaper. I can't believe I ever used to read this. You know, Luffy would obviously never take Vegapunk hostage. You're an idiot, Morgans. And Morgan says in the chapter, you know, it's not so much about fact, it's about entertainment. It's not about fact, it's about fiction. It's always been about fiction. It's the news. You know? And so, you know, I don't want to get into an argument involving alignments, because anytime you bring up alignments, there's always like, it's like, oh, he's this alignment. No, you're wrong. He's this alignment. No, he's clearly this alignment. I don't know. Morgan's, all right, fine. Morgan's is a dude that really just, he's in it for the money. Like, he's in it for, you know, like, to sell a bunch of his papers and to make a personal fortune. That's what he's been doing. But he's not on any particular side at the same time. He's not on the pirate side. He's not on the Marine side. He's not on the revolutionary side. He's not even on the world government side, even though it's the World Economic Journal and he takes kickback money from the world government all the time. He's not on anybody's side. It's just he wants to print the stories that get the most money, but also I think he just gets a jolly out of how much influence the dude has in the world. Okay, Morgan's is probably one of the characters that has the largest ego in the entire story, in the entire world, okay? Because think about that, and I even brought this up in the review, but like, you know, the news media in One Piece is rather limited. You know, they have the visual Den Mushies. They have the capability to do, like, broadcasted video feeds all over the world. We saw that with Sab Odie. Well, maybe not necessarily all over the world, but, like, at least in a limited capacity. Now, if you saw Film Red, you know that Vegapunk has been working on the special Twitch streaming Den Mushi, because there is a live streaming Den Mushi that does exist in Film Red that Uta just just finds on the shore, and then she can use that to stream to the entire world. But that's non-canon, all right? I don't want to sit here and think about the existential crises that exist and come into existence, when Twitch and like various social media now exists in the One Piece world. Okay, that's another video for another day. Okay, but as where we are right now in the story, that there's really no like television news all over the world. Okay, they have Den Den Mushi to communicate, but most people get their news through newspaper. Okay, and like I think there's like different newspapers depending on the island. Like if I remember correctly, Water 7 had the Mizu Mizu newspaper, so it was like a newspaper for just Water 7 that was printed on the island of Water 7 that pretty much just reported news that was local, local news around Water 7, and it's like, oh, Aqua Laguna cleanup entering its 4th day, something like that. Iceberg elected to 3rd term, I don't know what the mayoral limits are in Water 7, but, so individual islands might have their own newspapers, but when it comes to global news, when it comes to world news, when it comes to big news, as it were, there is one name in this business, and that name is Morgan's, okay? He controls everything, and, he gets off on it. He's just like, I can print whatever story I want, and I can send that out to the entire world, and, nobody can stop me, and I can tell them anything I want, and it also has a direct effect on the world. Like, the reason Luffy's bounty went to 1.5 billion after Whole Cake Island was largely in part of the story, the complete bullshit story, mind you, that was written in the paper. Okay, I guess it wasn't completely BS. The basic premise with that was that Stussy was working with Morgans, and Stussy had the impression that Luffy was this brilliant schemer, so he was the one that was actually behind this assassination plan for Big Mom. So Morgans wrote a story in the journal essentially giving Luffy all of the credit. I'm sure Beiji and everybody were mentioned in there too, but more of like side characters. It was Luffy that was like the one that had, all of the plans to begin with, right? And he was planning to assassinate Big Mom for like, weeks or months or something. That was the story, okay? Monkey D. Luffy attempts to assassinate a Yonko, right? And so that gets printed, and the world government kind of has no choice but to like boost his bounty, all right? I'm sure the government also, the government has its own intelligence operatives. They have Cypherpole, but like even so, the Marines and other organizations, they probably have to rely on the newspaper just like everybody else, just like the civilians of the world, okay? So if a Marine captain out at sea gets a newspaper that says Monkey D. Luffy attempted to assassinate Big Mom, he's this brilliant schemer, they're gonna believe it. They're like, okay, well, it's in the newspaper, must be true, right? Yeah, sure. Maybe the really, really higher ups in the world government, like the Gorosei, Kong, and everybody, they get their news like directly from the Cypherpole agencies, and they can like double check and be like, all right, I'm not really sure about this news article. Maybe you should send some of the Cypherpole to go figure out what's really going on here. But then again, the Cypherpole also infiltrate the World Economic Journal and basically tell Morgans, the stories that he is and he is not allowed to publish. And from what we understand, for a while there, Morgans had a relationship with the government where he's like, okay, fine, if you give me money or whatever, I'll not print something, or I will print something to make the government look good or to make the Marines look good. Remember like the story of Sora, Knight of the Sea, that's in the newspaper. That's just massive Marine and government propaganda right then and there. So that was kind of the relationship for a while. But now that Morgans is seeing the absolute chaos that is existing in the world. We have Yonkos dropping left and right. We have new Yonko popping up. The Revolutionary Army's getting moving. We had this crazy Reverie where the revolutionaries attacked and the admirals were getting involved. And then all the stuff with Wano and now Vegapunk. Morgans is done working for the government. Any fraying thread of a relationship that Morgans had with the world government is gone now. He is rogue. Okay, we got a rogue bird on our hands here, ladies and gentlemen. He's just like, you know what? This is like endgame level shit, and I'm going to print whatever story I want, damn it. Monkey D. Luffy assassinates the Gorosei. Oh, that's a great title. You know, seriously, that might be something he prints. You know, Monkey D. Luffy declares he will sit on the empty throne. I'm just gonna print it out like crazy, okay? So that's where Morgan's is at right now. He's kind of going overboard with it, but in a way that's like, okay, I kind of want to see where this is going. I kind of want to see it, you know, where he's going. He's not a good person. He's not a good person. He's really completely in it just for his own financial gain and his own ego. And I was actually thinking one way that whole system could be toppled is when Vegapunk does actually create the internet. You know, because think about the news media that exists prior to the internet and the way news is now, you know, disseminated to the public, you know, with the internet. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't get the news from a newspaper. I don't watch any news program on TV. I get my news from social media, like I'm sure everybody else does under the age of 30, you know what I mean? So after the internet becomes like a staple in the One Piece world, if Vegapunk realizes his dream, cut to like 10, 20 years in the future in like an epilogue of One Piece, Morgan's is going to be sort of out of business. Like, print media is pretty much dead in our world right now. So that's pretty much what's going to happen with Morgan. So enjoy it while it lasts, Morgans, because I can imagine in a couple of years after Vegapunk creates the internet and we get One Piece Twitter and One Piece Instagram and One Piece TikTok or whatever out there, yeah, news media it's going to be gone. You know, Morgan's is going to be there with a bunch of his seagulls. The only people he has, all of his workers left, it's just the seagulls that are his only friends, and then they eventually leave him as well. They're only there because he feeds them, and after he stops feeding them, they leave, and then Morgan's is just all alone next to Don Krieg under a bridge being homeless. Just like, he's like, so, what was up with you? He's like, I was Don Krieg! I was the leader of the pirate armada! Now give me that leftover pot pie! It was mine! I found it in the trash! And then, there you go. Big News Morgans and Don Krieg fighting for a half-eaten 3-day-old pot pie out behind the freaking pot pie restaurant. I don't know. By the way, funny little thing just before I move on to Vivi and Wapol's little involvement in all this. We've yet to see Morgan's actual form. Morgan's has a zone. He does. He has the Tori Tori no Mi model albatross. Okay, the albatross is a bird. You know, I think it was also the name of a plane. But anyway, no. But yeah, the weird thing is he's always in his full zone form, not his hybrid. He's always in his full zone form, and he has like his suits like tailored for it and everything. So he probably doesn't go into his regular form all that much. I'm kind of curious what Morgan's actually looks like, you know? I don't know. I'm picturing he's like a really tall, kind of like chubby dude that just, you know, I'm picturing him as bald for some reason. I don't know why. And, you know, just some kind of rich, you know, newspaper magnate, and he's just sitting down and just like, oh yes, the news, you know, but the bird aesthetic helps sell papers, you know, because it's the news coup that are all seagulls and he's a big bird, so, you know, it makes it work, you know what I mean? It sells papers, okay? Something else that's weird about Morgan's is that apparently he cannot fly, and that's a point of contention because he's actually said in the story that he cannot fly, but when he said that, he was falling off of Whole Cake Chateau while he was trying to take pictures with the Den Den Mushi. Like, he had a photographic transponder snail between his wings, and he was taking pictures as he fell off. And Stussy was like, are you going to be okay? And he's like, all right, I can't fly. Big news. But the thing is, like, albatross, like the actual bird, are really, really good flyers. They can fly insanely long distances. Albatross facts. But I don't know if he meant, like, I cannot fly because he's too heavy in his full bird form. But that doesn't make any sense because Pell could turn into a falcon. And Pell was big when he was in his full bird form, you know, and he could still fly. So I don't know if Morgan's meant that he could not fly, period, or he could not fly in that particular instance because, you know, he was taking pictures and he's like, oh, wait, if I'm using my wings to take pictures, I can't fly, you know, so I'm not really sure about that. But yeah, anyway, that's about Morgan's. He's having a field day right now. Okay, so now moving on to Vivi and Wapol, and then in the news In the news, we have Vivi Nefeltari, the queen or the queen regent or the princess plus of the Alabasta Kingdom, and Wapol, the king of the infamous Black Drum Kingdom, now currently at World Economic Journal headquarters. I'm not really sure what's going to happen with this, Barry, but I'm telling you what, it's going to be an insane thing that no one expected. And more on that tonight, as well as RHINO facts coming up after this. All right, so how did Vivi and Wapol get to the World Economic Times, okay? Because they were both at the Reverie. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that Morgans did not approach the Reverie. I'm dubious whether or not the World Economic Times, because it is a flying ship. There's not very many flying ships in the One Piece world, but I can't imagine they would get all the way over to the Red Line without getting, like, shot down by the world government. I also feel like because of what Morgans did, he, like, punched out one of the Cypherpole agents earlier. I don't think that he would go even near that place, okay? So I don't think it was like Morgans showed up and then picked up Wapol and Vivi. So what makes more sense is that Wapol essentially kidnapped Vivi and then took her to Morgans, okay? Now, there's still a lot of pieces involving Reverie that we don't know, like the full story of. We know that Sabo and the Revolutionary Army commanders launched an attack to get Kuma back. They succeeded in that. They got Kuma back to Kamabaka, but then Kuma flew off back to the Red Line again. He's currently scaling the Red Line at the Red Port. But they did manage to get Kuma back, as well as they fought against Green Bull and Fujitora at the same time. It was utter chaos. Also, in the middle of all that, you know, well, Charlos was attacked earlier in the Reverie, and then they had the whole thing with the Holy Knights, but then Cobra was assassinated. So, you know, like, honestly, at this point, maybe Wapol was the one that killed Cobra. I mean, it could have just been a member of the government, but, like, Wapol already hated Cobra for, you know, a bunch of reasons that you can see if you go back and watch the Drum Island arc at the tail end of that. So maybe he did, and maybe Vivi doesn't know. I don't know, though. Wapol is a coward. We know that for a fact. When he doesn't have his little entourage around him, he's like very like, oh, are we going to be okay? You know, because that's like where he gets all of his power pretty much. He can fight on his own. He can. It's just that I think that right now, considering everything that happened to him, he's like, oh, okay, crap. I don't have anybody around me to, you know, do whatever I want them to do and fight for me. All right. And, you know, he was kind of nervous in the last chapter. He was like looking around thinking that the government had bugged like something in the World Economic Journal because he's afraid that he's going to lose his status as a king again. That's like his number one fear, because he already had to experience that. He actually had to experience that twice. He had to experience leaving Drum Island and then becoming a pirate, which he hated. And then he had to experience getting knocked off of Drum Island somewhere in the South Blue. You have to remember that too. Luffy hit him so hard off of the top of the Drum Rockies in the castle. He hit him so hard, he got flung out of the Grand Line into the South Blue, where he started up his new empire, and now he has the Black Drum Kingdom in the South, right? So, yeah, that was a pretty crazy battle. But he already had to experience living in poverty and everything like that. So his one thing right now is just like, I kind of want to do whatever I can do to maintain my power in the government and rise through the ranks. That might actually have been why he allied with Morgans, because maybe he was thinking that, like, ooh, Morgans controls the newspaper, Morgans is in the pocket of the world government just like everybody else is, and, you know, Wapol wants to curry favor with the government, so maybe he's like, okay, I'll kidnap Vivi from the Reverie and take her to Morgans, and then we'll figure out what to do, thinking that Morgans was sort of on his side. But then Morgans starts spouting all this stuff where he's like, you know, he punched out a Cypherpole agent, and he's like, I don't care about what the government, you know, I'm doing my own thing, the news is about entertainment, and that's making Wapol kind of nervous, because it's not what he expected. You know, Wapol was expecting him and Morgans to be kind of on the same page here and work together to further their own, you know, financial gain and their own power and, you know, influence in the world. And the thing is, like, Morgans does care about that. He just only cares about it for himself. He doesn't, I don't think Morgans gives a shit about Wapol at all, right? Wapol is just kind of there for him. Wapol is like one of many leaks and information sources, and he has dozens, maybe even hundreds of those throughout the world. Civilians and like in the private sector, in the black market, in the underworld, he has connections. He has connections with other kings and royalty, probably not just Wapol. So yeah, I don't think he's going to be working with Wapol. I mean, they're both very duplicitous individuals, but I don't think they're going to be like, oh, hey, we're very similar in terms of personality, so let's work together. I don't think it's going to be like that, right? Vivi was very upset, as Morgan stated. You know, right in the chapter, she was pretty confident, but Morgan stated that, like, oh, you seem pretty confident for somebody that was bawling her eyes out the day before. You know what I mean? And I'm assuming that's because Cobra is dead. You know, she found out the news that her father was dead. It seems like Cobra is, in fact, gone. It wasn't like that was fake news or anything like that, because based off what Sabo said and everything, like, hey, I didn't kill Cobra, Dragon, you gotta believe me, I didn't do it. That was something else, okay? So in that situation, yeah, Cobra is dead. Vivi is very upset by that, but now she has to, like, okay, my father's gone, but I'm in this crazy situation. I'm in the World Economic Times, so I have to, like, you know, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna focus on this, and just, she was back-talking Morgan's in the last chapter, all right? The crazy thing is, now that they're in this mobile fortress, this flying machine, they can kind of go, not everywhere in the world, but they can kind of travel places, you know what I mean? So, I don't know. I'm actually, I'm painting this image in my head where, okay, Morgan's and Wapol, they can fight, but they're not, like, the strongest, like, characters in the One Piece world, right? I wonder, probably not, but I wonder if Vivi could, like, beat the shit out of Morgan's and then be like, you know, you're taking me where I want you to take me, you know, kind of situation like that. I don't think so. I mean, like I said in one of the videos I made recently on the strongest female characters in One Piece that don't have devil fruits, I'm assuming that Vivi has kept up with her training a little bit, but since she has been the Princess of Alabasta for the last 2 years, she kind of has to focus on that. So she might have her peacock slashers on her. I mean, going to Reverie, she probably brought them with her. Where's Karu? Karu wasn't with her. I'm assuming Karu is somewhere on the ship, because Vivi being separated from Karu, I mean, like, that would just be really sad. So if she does have Karu with her and the peacock slashers, maybe she just, like, wraps a peacock slasher around Morgan's and just, like, all right, you stupid bird, you're gonna take me to the Straw Hats, or you're gonna take me back home to Alabasta, or whatever. I don't know. It's just, nobody expected this. Really, nobody expected this. I expected Vivi to be locked in a dungeon at Marijois, or in the hands of or maybe Sabo escaped with her or something like that. Like, I was expecting that. I was not expecting her to end up with Morgan's and Wapol. That was like the weirdest twist of fate, you know? But then again, you also got to remember that Oda is trying to push everything together, just like how he brought Weevil and Miss Buckingham back into, like, the main story with their backstories and everything like that, and their connection to Vegapunk. So now we're bringing Vivi and Wapol back into it. I don't know why Wapol's there. He's just kind of like, oh, what? Why am I here again? What? I'm just here to make, you know, I just want to have my evil empire and whatever, guys. I don't want to be involved in this One Piece final battle shit. You know, that's Wapol. He's gonna bail first chance he gets. First chance he gets to escape Morgan's and then go back home to his evil drum kingdom in the south. He's gonna do that, all right? I think he doesn't want to be involved in some massive war, is what I'm saying, okay? The last thing that Wapol wants, okay? So Vivi was talking about how, you know, it's like, I hate this newspaper that you're writing, you know, Luffy would never do that, and then Morgan starts going on this rant. So I'm trying to think, like, what's the natural progression of this? You know, I guess it would be, like, they're heading somewhere. They're currently going somewhere in their mobile tea kettle fortress, okay? So where would Morgan's be heading is the question. I don't think he would be going straight to Egghead, because once again, well, Okay, I would say he doesn't usually get involved in these stories directly because, like, he knows how dangerous this is. He doesn't want to die. Now, he was part of the Tea Party at Tauntland, but that was because, like, Big Mom issued him an invitation. When you get an invitation from Big Mom to attend a Tea Party, there is no, like, oh, yes or no on the checkbox. No, there is a no, but if you check it, you're kind of dead. So he had no choice but to go to that, all right? But left to his own devices, if Morgans hears that a giant fleet of Marine battleships led by an admiral are heading to Egghead Island, where a shitload of new Pacifista models are now bombarding government agents, where the Straw Hats are, where Vegapunk is, where Cypherpole Aegis Zero is, that's a crazy story. But is it a crazy enough story to attract the moth to the flame, as it were? Like, is Morgan's gonna be like, okay, if I go there, I might be able to get the greatest story, like greater than fiction, more than what I could even come up with in my wildest imaginations, might be going down at Egghead. But the problem is, if I get even close to that place, I could straight up die, But then again, they aren't in a flying machine. And like I said, flying machines are pretty rare in the One Piece world, okay? It's a little rudimentary because it's basically a hot air balloon that's being towed by like 300 seagulls. But like, still, I just realized it's kind of like James and the Giant Peach a little bit. Maybe that was the inspiration for it. I don't know. But if he just like, and then just stops above Egghead, and then has a telescope or binoculars or something and observes the battle, maybe he might do that. I don't know. Because I really want Vivi, since she's with Morgans now, she's not, in the dungeons of Marijois, or she's not in paradise. I'm assuming they're not in paradise. I'm assuming they're in the New World. Vivi might actually be able to be reunited with the Straw Hats fairly quickly. And I would love that. I would love that. If they're in the Paradise side of the Grand Line, that complicates things. So, maybe Vivi would want to just go back to Alabasta and make sure her people are okay and tell them the news about her father so she can be sworn in as the queen. But if she's in the New World, then going back across the world to Alabasta, that's going to be very difficult, even in a flying machine, So at this point, might as well be like, okay, I can't get back home to Alabasta. My father is dead. I lost my duck. Okay, we know the Straw Hats are on Egghead. Take me to Egghead. At least I can see the Straw Hats. They can help me out if anybody can help me out, right? So I would just prefer at this point, just full steam ahead. Just have Vivi reunite with the Straw Hats and then figure out everything from that point onward. Maybe Morgans could even assist them in escaping Egghead. Okay, because he does have a flying machine. The Sunny is capable of, the coup-de burst. Like, I always assumed the way that the Sunny was going to get off Egghead was just they were going to, like, coup-de burst and launch themselves, like, physically off of the Labosphere, crash down into the sea. The Sunny's tough. It can take it. And then just sail off. But if Morgans has this flying machine that's like, cuckoo, aha, look at the big news. Maybe he can, like, give the Straw Hats, he can, like, pick up the Sunny and just tow it into the ocean and then they can get out that way. I don't know, man. I'm just throwing out ideas at this point. I'm just spitballing. But, like, yeah, might as well just have Vivi reunite with the Straw Hats. Maybe Wapol gets, like, kicked off the side. Maybe Wapol just starts annoying the crap out of Morgans, and Morgans just pushes him, like, reporter punch, and then punches him off the side, and Wapol falls, and he's like, no! And he lands, and he goes through another crazy Wapol misadventure all over again. I don't know. But then the Straw Hats are reunited with Vivi, and everyone's happy, and just like, okay, and then maybe they can find Vegapunk. We still don't know what's up with Vegapunk. So, I don't know. But if Morgans is not heading toward Egghead, where would he be going? That's the question. Where is Morgans, Wapol, and Vivi heading now? If it was just Morgans, I wouldn't question it. He's a reporter. He goes wherever the news, wherever he can write a story or whatever. He might just find a deserted island and land there and just write his reports and then send them out to the entire world. He doesn't need to be right there. But since Vivi and Wapol are on board, I'm like, okay, well, you have the opportunity now for Vivi to reunite with the Straw Hats. You might as well just do it, you know what I mean? Anyway, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. Crazy, crazy news stuff in One Piece. But now we have a special report here talking about rhinos today. Go to that intro. right, so on today's special report, we're talking about the Javan rhino. The Javan rhino, as I said at the beginning of Rhino Facts, is the rarest rhino species in the world. There is only one small population of them that are living in the wild right now in one particular national park on the western edge of the island of Java, located in Indonesia, called, and you'll forgive me, my Indonesian's not the greatest, Ujung Kulon National Park. It's literally, so let me first show you this. This is a map of the former range of the Javan rhino. It used to have the most widespread range out of all rhino species in Asia, okay? And so this is what it used to be, and you can tell where they currently are now, right? You can see it, right? You might have to squint a little bit. It's very small. They actually have to zoom in at the bottom. So on the western edge of the island of Java, there's this small little, I thought it was an island at first, but there's this small little piece of land bridge that still connects it. And right there is where every single living Javan rhino in the entire world resides. Their current population is somewhere between 58 and 68, and there are none in captivity, which means the only pictures of the ones we have in captivity are like from the early 1900s, even into the 1800s. Okay, these very grainy images are the only ones we have right now. So because there's so few of them, researchers kind of don't want to disrupt their natural environment, you know, out of fear of like disrupting things. So they're actually not observed or researched directly. Usually it's through like cameras and stuff like that, like examining them in the wild, so they are still there. But the fact that there's only like 68 of them maximum is a problem just because of inbreeding. They could very well become extinct, like within, you know, my and your lifetime. You know, it's not completely impossible. They have the smallest horn out of all rhino species, usually less than 9 inches, and the only ones that have the horns are the bulls. The females do not. However, and I feel like this is a running theme, despite that they might have the smallest horn compared to other rhinos, they are still hunted for their horns constantly. You know, IRF link down below as that. I think we only have one more episode of Rhino Facts after this. We're going to be covering the black rhinos. So after that, I think we've covered all 5 rhino species that are extant in the wild. So yeah, this has been a very educational adventure for the Rhino Facts, yes. And then after this, we'll be moving on to, I'm thinking, snake facts for the letter S. So yeah, that'll be that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Donate to the IRF down below, International Rhino Foundation. Thanks for watching. Signing out. Later.